Hi everyone, and welcome to today's session where we will share the first set of delivered product enhancements for CCH Integrator for 2019. I'm Pippa McDonald and I'll be your moderator today. Today we have Jim Edwards, Global Director of Enterprise Software, and Briony Campbell, Director of Product for Enterprise Software with us. Both lead the development of CCH Integrator platform at Wolters Kluwer. If you have any questions after today, we request that you email Jim and Briony directly. Their contact details will be displayed on the last slide of this presentation. Also, a reminder to everyone to share their feedback on this session when exiting. We have asked you a couple of questions about today's webinar, and it's really important that you share feedback with us so we can keep improving. Good afternoon, Jim and Briony, over to you.
Thanks very much, Pippa, and welcome everybody, and thanks for taking time out of your day to hear from Briony and I in relation to the latest product update, which is labelled 2019.1. In terms of today's format, I'm just going to run through a little bit about what's come out in the current release, and also following our usual format for product updates, we're also going to talk about what's coming for the rest of 2019. Just before we get into the detail of what's come out in the current release, just want to set a bit of context about what's happening both within Wolters Kluwer and more broadly across the global tax technology industry. As you know, there's been a lot of developments within the regulators around the world being more aggressive towards corporations to seek more frequent and detailed information from taxpayers around their tax affairs. With the Australian government's a classic example of that with their Justified Trust program. We're also seeing then the evolution of various different technology sets around the world, from robotic process automation, machine learning and AI technologies that are also helping to, provide more efficiency over the governance of taxes around the world. We're pleased to be able to get access to a lot of these technologies within our innovation labs here at Wolters Kluwer, and we've been taking advantage of a lot of these technologies now and incorporating a lot more of them in and around CCH Integrator. So we're excited to share with you a number of great developments that are coming up over the next 3 to 6 months in some of those more innovative areas. Of course, Integrator has been used currently by hundreds of corporates, predominantly here in Australia, but also a lot of them internationally around the world for various different forms of compliance and reporting. The enhancements that we've made in this release as a result of continuous surveying and feedback from all of you in terms of the major areas that you'd like to see improvements in the product to help improve your usage of the technology. But as Pippa said before, please reach out to us whenever you want to share further insights and information about what you'd expect or like from our product, and we'll do our best to ensure that that's incorporated. So with that as a bit of a background, I'll hand over to Briony to step us through what's come out in the 2019.1 release.
Thanks, Jim, and good afternoon, everyone. So 2019.1 is quite exciting for, I think, the Integrator user base, Jim, it's true to say. Certainly, we're looking to provide users in this release greater flexibility and efficiency and transparency around fixed asset movements in particular. So for those of you that are using Integrator for tax accounting purposes, I'll go through those enhancements. Certainly also around the area of bulk upload improvement. So a good section of our user base use our bulk upload functionality, which obviously helps to automate processes within Integrator and is used heavily by companies with large groups of entities. Also improvements to tax code analysis tests. So for those users out there who are using Integrator for indirect tax purposes in particular. And also, very excitedly, introducing the first APIs to the CCH Integrator platform. So we'll go through those in details and in terms of what that includes, but certainly it's a very exciting time for us. And as Jim said earlier, we'll go through what's coming up in 2019 for the rest of the year as well. So you'll see in front of you the platform overview. Many of you will be very familiar with this platform overview. Certainly, from an Integrator perspective, we think of Integrator as being a breakup of core design and solution layers within that application. The core layer contains all of the underlying architecture developed by our expert software engineers, and it manages the data and business logic within the platform. So and obviously uses Microsoft Internet Explorer to deliver the end user functionality. The design layer itself is essentially provides a suite of front-end user configurable tools, as we refer to them as. There's no software coding knowledge or experience or training required to use these tools. And this is what essentially sets CCH Integrator apart from other applications out on the market. We then have the solutions layer within Integrator as well. They essentially represent Wolters Kluwer configured and maintained compliance solutions. So many of you out there would be using it for, say, Australian company tax return, or it could be a Singapore company tax return, or it could be for a GST return or a VAT return. So in the red highlighted boxes, that's essentially the areas of the application that we've enhanced in the 2019.1 release, and certainly their focus for our webinar today. So, tax accounting, as many of you will be aware, we've invested heavily in enhancing the overall tax accounting solution within the Integrator platform, certainly in the last 18 months to 2 years in particular, and 2019.1 is no different to that. So the area that we're focused on here is essentially allowing users to more easily account for fixed asset movements on the Integrator asset schedule. So as many of you are aware, one area of tax where complexity arises is generally in the area of fixed assets. This is generally to do with the complexity around poor quality of data, large material numbers, complex legislative rules and regimes. And the CCH Integrator asset schedule is designed to better facilitate fixed asset movements for a period, which is why the actual schedule itself has more columns on it as opposed to the balance sheet itself. However, we found in talking to users and many of you on the line that this wasn't enough, and consistent feedback certainly highlighted the need for us to enhance the asset schedule to do more to assist users in easily accounting for their fixed asset movements. As some users were actually having to make additional adjustments on the tax accounting schedules instead of on the actual fixed asset schedule itself, so less than ideal for them. And certainly they were capital intensive businesses in particular that had these issues. And essentially some of the users had to do too much work to get their tax accounting right for fixed asset movements, and we obviously wanted to make sure that the user experience was enhanced. So in 2019.1, we've added new columns to the asset schedule. You'll now see a deferred only column and an equity column. Previously, we had a transfers column, but certainly the transfers column has moved as on the schedule. And the idea being that the actual schedule itself will provide a lot more transparency to end users to help facilitate tax-only adjustments or adjustments in regards to equity, so asset revaluation in particular. So previously you could do those adjustments via the asset schedule, however it wasn't transparent, and for some adjustments, further adjustments, as I mentioned earlier, were required to be made on further schedules within the tax accounting module, such as the tax-based maintenance schedule. So this was also particularly important for us as we have a lot of clients using the application. As Jim noted, in Australia, however, we have a large amount of clients now using it globally with obviously different regimes. So we need to make sure that that the asset schedule itself can be used for all of our users. So who benefits from this in particular? As mentioned earlier, it's essentially, I guess, the largest corporations in particular that will benefit greatly from this. The ones where they have particularly large fixed asset balances. And certainly from our perspective, it's going to be a very welcomed enhancement for users out there. So from that perspective, I guess from a tax accounting perspective, we do have future enhancements that we will be looking to provide in the tax accounting module. and certainly around the area of prior period adjustments as well. However, certainly looking forward to hearing your feedback in regards to the latest tranche of enhancements with respect to the fixed asset changes. So going on to further enhancements. Many of you out there are using the Integrator bulk file upload functionality, which is hugely popular and it's a well-loved piece of functionality within the Integrator platform. Not only does it bulk upload data, but of course it can also be used to bulk create workbooks, copy and roll forward workbooks. So it's certainly a worthwhile piece of functionality within the platform. Over time, however, use of the platform for a lot of organisations has become more complex. Organisations have become larger, and Integrator was being used more frequently or for different purposes. And through that, we've also identified additional opportunities for enhancement within the bulk file upload functionality to make it easier for users. So one of the enhancements that was brought through in 2019.1 is in the area where users may have had overlapping reporting periods set up within Integrator. So they shared the same end date for 2 or more periods. And this would cause Integrator, this would cause some issues for some users using the functionality, as the automation feature of Integrator was hard for it to determine which period and which workbooks in which to upload. So I'm pleased to say for a majority of users this wasn't a problem, but certainly in the service firms where they, in particular, where they do have clients with overlapping reporting periods, because the platform's also being used for different purposes as well, it was problematic. So we have enhanced that area, so now users will be able to use Integrator to bulk upload files where there are overlapping reporting periods. So there is another, as you can see on the screen, there is in column H, there is another field for users to use in their bulk upload file that will ensure that the bulk file uploads into the correct workbooks, and the automation functionality can still be used with an Integrator. Previously, for bulk file upload purposes, users also had to have the file sorted by entity. So in order for the file to upload correctly into Integrator, we have now enhanced the platform such that any bulk file upload does not need to be sorted by the actual entity code for it to be successfully uploaded into the application. In 2019.1, we've also enhanced the area of transaction analysis, particularly for tax code analysis test. So tax code analysis test is one of the most useful tests in CCH Integrator's data tests. The test identifies where there is a GST or VAT rate that is different to the expected rate on a given transaction. And this means that Integrator looks at every single transaction in this analysis. Previously in this test, a user had to apply the filters to find the transactions where there was a rate variance. And this was obviously quite time consuming and often meant that users needed to resort to Excel to review transactions, which obviously wasn't ideal for users. So in 2019.1, we've introduced a new checkbox that, when ticked, only displays transactions where the GST rate differs to the rate expected. Filters can then be used to remove transactions where the variance isn't material if desired. So Jim, I'll hand over to you.
Yeah, sure.
APIs.
No problem. So as Briony mentioned at the start too, we've made a number of significant advancements around APIs. Now, for a lot of you on the phone here, you may not be aware of what APIs are or how they can actually be used or what's involved in actually taking advantage of them. So I thought I'd just explain a little bit more about what they are and then how they can be brought to life and taken advantage of. So an API, it's a abbreviation for an application programming interface. And essentially, it's a method by which systems can talk to each other. We have introduced APIs into Integrator to help automate routine processes and help improve the information exchange of data which has been collected or calculated within Integrator, or in other applications to allow that to be easily shared between applications. So these APIs that have been introduced have been driven by a number of our larger clients who are seeking to automate some of the more routine processes that have to be performed within the application, but they want to take out the human element and not rely upon a resource who sits within the tax or finance function to have to execute the task. So broadly speaking, the APIs that have been introduced for one of these four reasons here. So it's about improving the integration with external systems, and that might be an upstream system like a general ledger or a financial consolidation system, or a workflow system, or some other upstream system like a sub-ledger perhaps. Or it might be for the purpose of supporting the automation of the provisioning process, setting up users, setting up entities. So, you might have an API from your employee directory system that automatically sets up a user or decommissions a user when they leave your organisation. It can also support the integration of existing workflows. So if you've got a process that's undertaken by an upstream team, perhaps part of their monthly close process for the accounting close, it can then make calls to Integrator to then automate the calculation of the tax provision and calculation of the subsequent journals for then posting back into finance. And the last one is about then providing the data that's been collected or calculated in Integrator to expose that then for other external systems for analysis. So, a lot of you and other people within tax functions are seeking to use a lot of the emerging and fairly well advanced reporting technologies like Power BI and Tableau and ClickView. And these APIs essentially allow or are a framework to provide you to get easy access to that data, so you can bring it into visualization tools. So this latest release includes a number of APIs. The APIs they're already actually been provisioned and used by some of our larger service firm clients. They are equally applicable to I'd say probably the larger end of the corporate clients. If you're only a small tax team and you've only got a handful of calculations, you probably wouldn't go to the effort of taking advantage of these, or because it might not give you an adequate return on the investment of effort. But certainly if you're a reasonable sized organisation, or you've got quite a fair few calculations involved in your process, then it's worth a conversation with us to see how you could potentially take advantage of these APIs. So, as a follow-up, I won't go into huge amounts of detail on the how on today's call, but certainly worth a conversation with your contact points within the CCH Integrator team to explore that further. In terms of the actual APIs that have been deployed, we've got APIs around the creation of users, creation of entities, creation and roll forward of workbooks, the locking and unlocking of workbooks and updating with template changes, the ability to change the status on an individual schedules within the system, and then also the ability to sort of provision access, so enable access to users to have access to certain entities, and also then provision reporting years and periods. So you can see it's a lot of these sort of administrative baseline APIs that we've created initially. One of the other features that we've got that's now available as well is the ability to actually embed Integrator within other applications. So if you've got, a lot of people are using Integrator as part of a broader workflow process, where they really just want to allow the system to be opened up and extended to other stakeholders who are going to contribute into the tax reporting compliance process, but they don't necessarily want to expose those users to all the intricacies of tax accounting and the broader complexities of the application. So with that, we've now got the ability to take an Integrator frame and embed it through one of these APIs into another application. And that application might be your own SharePoint site or internal workflow solution or something like that. So again, other options there just to allow you to improve the user experience for your end users. So moving on now beyond the 2019.1 release, and we'll talk about the roadmap and what's coming. Now, there is a huge amount of activity that's been taking place within Wolters Kluwer over the last 6 to 9 months around a whole bunch of R&D in a range of different areas. I'll emphasise and highlight some of the most exciting ones that I think will be of interest to you. But please, as I said before, if there's any particular areas of this presentation that you want to know further information about, just reach out to us. And your account managers will be in touch in due course anyway, and they can go through this in further detail then as well. But some of the things that are coming, we've grouped them again into, we'll start with the direct tax and tax accounting area and move across to web sheets and innovations. But on the direct tax accounting area, as Briony mentioned before, the assets schedule enhancements, and further then moving into the prior period adjustment enhancements. And that's improving that prior period adjustment process to account for period 13 adjustments to profit or any other adjustments back in the financial statements, so they're adequately accounted for in terms of calculation and impact on tax expense. We're also looking at improving the way in which we're dealing with tax depreciable items through work papers, and also enhancing the way that movements are entered into the closing balance, into the balance sheet, so that they're entered as closing balances, not just as movements in the tax bases. Now, this has been done as an optional thing, so some people are happy with the way in which it works, entering tax movements. Others would prefer to enter tax closings. So, we'll have switches on a template there to allow you to configure the platform to work in either way. On the web sheet side, now, for those of you who aren't aware of web sheets provides you a framework to essentially replace the use of offline Excel spreadsheets to calculate or capture and calculate and report on any information that's required in the tax reporting compliance process. It's really taken off, and it's been used right around the world by some significant global organisations, and it's been used for corporate income tax returns, statutory financial statement preparation, CFC calculations, tax footnote reporting, all sorts of different individual work papers to help support the calculation and disclosure of taxes. Oh, and by the way, it's also the technology that's powering the Australian local file, the actual preparation and summarisation of intercompany transactions for disclosure to the ATO. That technology, it's advancing really, really well, being used and deployed in many, many countries now, and being used at scale as well to execute a lot of, or improve the amount of automation being performed in a lot of tax calculations. One of the enhancements that we're very excited that's coming soon is the integration of that web sheet calculation capability back into what we call the classic elements of Integrator, which is the tax accounting engine. So being able to feed financial data, or rather tax inputs, directly into these web sheets, automate the calculation or provide more comprehensive calculations of adjustments for tax, and then automating the feedback of that back into your tax adjustments and back into your tax reporting process. Through that integration, we'll then allow web sheets to essentially become the new and improved interface that sits across the top of Integrator. So again, for a number of you who are opening up Integrator to financial controllers who might be a little bit overwhelmed by some of the tax schedules, the web sheet to classic integration will allow you to obfuscate or simplify the user input mechanism for that information that you need to collect from other financial controllers who aren't perhaps as tax savvy as the rest of you on the phone. Moving on to the innovation labs we mentioned before, so more APIs to improve the integration of Integrator back into other supporting platforms. Another area that we're working on right now and very close to releasing, which is around the integration of Integrator with Microsoft Word to facilitate the production of formatted financial statements and formatted outputs from Integrator. The driver behind that is to be able to produce nicely formatted financial outputs that is leveraging structured and non-structured information that's been collected in Integrator. So that's coming shortly. In addition to that, we're also looking at some significant reserve schedule improvements to cater for uncertain tax positions. A couple of other areas. So in the other development under section D on the left there, we're looking at improving and overhauling the way in which the reporting is working through Integrator. We know that there's lots of opportunities there to leverage more modern technologies and just to simplify the overall process for getting data out of the platform. We've got some planned improvements there. And also an overhaul of the way in which the application is navigated through to give it a more contemporary and modern look and feel. we've got an application here which has got a lot of power in it and a lot of capability, but in introducing a lot of that capability, in some ways we've overwhelmed the end users with a bit too much complexity. So we're wanting to improve that user interface, and we're actually bringing in some exterior designers, some UX specialists to help us through that journey of coming up with an improved user interface to simplify the number of steps involved in executing a task and to make it more conducive, particularly for those first-time users who aren't familiar with the application. Part of that will also include an overhaul of the initial landing page of Integrator to, again, just make it easier for you to sort of navigate through and actually complete the task that you're trying to within the application without you necessarily having to know the ins and outs of all of the platform. We're also looking at adding some compliance solutions, particularly around the Justified Trust initiative of the Australian Government. So improving the transparency and reporting of information to help you gain and establish justified trust with the ATO. And the last point there around iFirm, now most of you on the phone probably aren't aware of the iFirm application, but it's another technology that's owned by Wolters Kluwer to serve mid-sized accounting practices and mid-sized and small accounting practices to facilitate the preparation of Australian and New Zealand tax returns across all tax types. Now, this application is very heavily used across many accountants, but through the evolution of their technology, we've decided to actually integrate the two technologies together. Now, the real advantage for you as integrated users and consumers is that now the application, its advancement's going to increase at a much faster rate. So off the back of the integration of Integrator with iFirm, we'll be getting access to a whole lot of additional development energy and efforts to help increase the rate of advancement of the platform. Those advancements are particularly going to be felt around the area of web sheets. So again, I come back to the earlier point of if you're not already aware of the capability of web sheets, it's worth spending some time to get more familiar with it, to think about how you might be able to take advantage of those features, because they're going to be moving and advancing at a very fast rate. The last section was around technology advancements. There's a whole range of areas here that, again, will deliver some great benefits to you as users. So we are migrating across to Azure from Dimension Data, our current hosted provider. There was emails sent out to all of you recently to notify you of our plans to migrate, and I'm calling out some of the primary benefits and to why. But the good thing about migrating across to Azure is, again, it'll give us access to a lot of the Microsoft advancements around machine learning, artificial intelligence, and improved performance and security. So we're very keen to migrate across and start to take advantage of those technological advancements. We're also looking at automating more aspects of the upgrade process. And by automating, it just takes out the human element, reduces risks, and improves our efficiency and ultimately your efficiency as well, so that you're getting more upgrades in a more frequent manner with less disruption to your business. The next point was around multi-factor authentication, which is an initiative with the advancement of, I guess, cybersecurity trends and the importance of putting in place strong security frameworks. Both the ATO and a number of other organisations are demanding that stronger security controls are put in place to ensure that all of our data is being protected. So as part of that, we will be introducing multi-factor authentication, which further detail on that can come out shortly. But it ultimately will impact the way in which you gain access to the site. Extending Integrator for support for more browsers as well. So we have been advancing that. We've already got that enabled for the web sheet componentry, but we are pushing that multi-browser capability across the broader platform as well. Just looking at other key things. And yeah, the other point there was just around performance. So again, particularly as more and more clients are becoming geographically dispersed around the world and people are connecting into Integrator from networks that may not be operating at the most optimal speed, there are some enhancements and advancements we're making around improving the responsiveness of the application under those sort of lower network latency environments. So that was all we had to cover today. We finished a little bit earlier than planned, so we'll give you an extra half an hour back in your day. But thanks for listening in, and please feel free to share this presentation with your colleagues who weren't able to attend today. It will be shared after the call via our LinkedIn channel. And as Pippa said at the start, there's my details and Briony's details. And if you wanted to follow up with us for any other further information or a one-on-one conversation about some of these enhancements, then we look forward to speaking to you. So thanks for your time today, and enjoy the rest of your day.